Okay, in this video, we are going to discuss what happens when you have a vertical asymptote, as we have here. We have our vertical asymptote right here at x equals 6, and that our graph is approaching this asymptote from both sides. And so what happens as our graph continues when we have limits that approach infinity? So here's what we're looking at here. I have a limit of our function f of x. We're being asked what that limit is when the graph approaches 6. Now notice that little negative right there. That means we're approaching from the negative side or from the left. Okay, now on the second one we have a little plus, so that means we're going to be focused on where the graph is approaching 6 from the right. Okay, and of course down here this is a two-sided limit, also known just as a limit, and we're concerned with where the graph is approaching 6 from both sides. So let's take a look at this. Now my strategy as always is to mark my number. All right, I just have always had that like little strategy is to mark it so that it kind of focuses my attention. I am slightly ADD, so that kind of helps when I do that. And we're going to look if we are approaching from the left. So I'm going to pretend I am this little person walking this way, getting closer and closer to 6 from the left, from that negative side. And as I get closer and closer and closer, what's happening to the graph? Well, it is approaching 6, but it is approaching 6 on the x-axis, but remember that limits are always y values. So what is happening here is our graph is going to continue up and up and up, but it is an asymptote. It is never, ever going to touch that line, so to speak, x equals 6. So it is continuing all the way to positive infinity. All right, it is possible that this happens. It's going to get closer and closer. It's going to approach x equals 6, but it will never, ever touch it. It's going to cuddle up really close, but it's never actually going to touch it. Okay, so on the flip side, let's take a look at if we are approaching from the right, the positive side. So now let's pretend we are hanging out here and we are walking closer and closer and closer to x equals 6. Okay, we're walking closer to the x value. Well, now what happens to our y values? Okay, as I get a little bit closer, it goes to here. And as I get a little bit closer again, oh, now it's going here. And as I get a little bit closer, well, it's getting closer. And our y values actually are decreasing. And it's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And as I get closer, if I could just cuddle up really, really close to that, it's going to go way down. Okay. So as we approach from the right, we are actually approaching negative infinity. Okay, it will never actually touch that line, the asymptote x equals 6. So it's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller forever, and it will approach negative infinity. Okay, so now let's take a look at this last one. Okay, we have a one-sided limit, or excuse me, two-sided limit here, otherwise known as just a limit. So what happens as x is approaching 6? We have to look at it from both sides. So as this guy is approaching 6, it's going way up there to positive infinity. As this guy is approaching 6, he's going all the way down to negative infinity. Well, in order to be a two-sided limit, they have to approach the same value. One of these is approaching positive infinity and one is approaching negative infinity. So therefore, the only conclusion we can make is that this limit does not exist. These two values right here have to be the same. And even though in a lot of times students get confused because they think, well, I'm approaching 6 here. Well, I'm approaching 6 here. They use the x value and they think that it is the same value because we always say, oh, it has to be the same. It is not the x value that has to be the same. It's the y value that has to be the same. So in this case, we have a two-sided limit that does not exist.